Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nupehadda. Today, we've gotten a leaked information about VJMP magazine, and apparently, in the VJMP magazine, it talks about new game mechanics, new rulings, and a completely new field for Yu-Gi-Oh. So, I'm just going to go in here and just give you the simple information. You can look this up. I'll try to put the information down below in the description so you can look at it yourself. But let's get into it. The first thing we have to talk about is the field. They have added an extra monster zone. Now, this is also known as the extra deck monster zone. What it is that this is where extra deck monsters will be going to now, and you can only have one extra deck monster at a time. And this is classified as a new zone. And what they have done is the original monster zones, or the field for the monsters and everything, is now classified as a main deck monster zone, or main monster zone as they also call it. And those will only be for the main deck monsters now. So you have 5 spots for regular monsters from your main deck and 1 spot for your extra deck. This includes synchros, fusions, and exceeds, and also any pendulum monsters that are face up in your extra deck will be summoned into that the extra monster zone. Now, any pendulum monsters that are summoned from your hand will go to the field itself. But besides that, this will drastically slow down the Yu-Gi-Oh community's decks and all that. Some decks will actually die from this because they can't function on one extra deck monster to being on the field. They have to have at least 2 or 3 to function correctly. Some don't care because the majority of them are casual players or rogue decks, and some decks are actually going to get boosted like Nova Knights. Now, they've also introduced a new type of monster. It is called a link monster. The link monster is located in your extra deck. What it is that it is a monster that can go into your extra monster card zone. And when it's there, it has little arrows around the body of the card itself. There's 8 arrows. They're called link markers. While the link monster is on the field, specifically, of course, the extra deck zone, you can actually summon extra deck monsters at particular locations where those link marks are at. Now, in order to do this, of course, you have to fulfill a requirement, and the link monsters have requirements to be brought out on the field. They're actually quite easy. We do have one confirmation, which is actually shown into the links below, of a monster called Deco Talker. He is a dark type, a new type, or a dark attribute, I should say, not type. A new type, which is a cyborg, or a cyber, I'm sorry. I'm getting that all mixed up. And a linked monster, an effect monster as well. He is a link 3 with 2300 attack. Now, here's the thing. Link monsters do not have defense points. So, they can never go face down, and they can never go in defense mode. They have to be in attack mode when you activate them, or summon them, however you want to declare. And this is actually stated in their Q&A below, because someone asked if you can book a moon a link monster. The answer to that is simply no, because it does not have a defense power, and it has to stay face up on the field. Now, in place of its defense power, it has its link number. And the link number is important because there are 2 ways of summoning a link monster. The first one is obvious, what it tells you on the card. And for Talker, he requires 2 or more effect monsters to be sent from the field to the graveyard. But there's another way of doing that. And they actually describe this. If you want to, and you have a link monster that has a link 2, then you can send that monster and one effect monster. As long as the link will fulfill the requirements of the cost of the monster to summon, this is being Talker, you can bring him onto the field. Now, currently, we have confirmation of 3 link monsters, and they each have 1 link number each. One is link 1, link 2, and link 3. And if we ever get any higher numbers, of course, the requirements are higher. But right now, that's pretty much what we know about the link monsters. Now, for the field itself, because they have link markers on the bodies of the cards, you now have to pay attention to where you put your monsters in the field zones. You can no longer just put them anywhere you want in terms of, well, it's just a game. The playmat is just there as a reference. It's no longer a reference now. Now it's changed, and you do have to follow it. Because one of the arrows points directly across to your opponent. And if there's a monster right there, more likely a link monster, because the extra monster zones are actually in front of one another, then you get the bonuses of whatever the effect is for the link monster. Because Talker has 2 abilities. The first one, he gains 500 attack points for every monster in the link. So he has 3 links. He has 1 at the top and 2 at the bottom corners. Now, when you set 2 monsters there and 1 up top, you'll gain an additional 1500 attack. Secondly, he has an ability that if a monster would be targeted by your opponent's card effects, you can tribute a link monster that you control. Noted that the monster in front of him is not yours, so you can't do that one. You have to do the ones that are at the corners. You tribute that off, and you negate the activation of that effect, and you destroy it. Now, there's also, I've already read Link 1, or one of the Link 1s, and let's say Link Spider, and the only thing it does is allow you to special summon a level 4 or lower normal monster, if I remember correctly, if it's a normal monster or if it's just a regular monster, to the link zone. And if I recall, the link marker for the spider was at the bottom, so it's pretty much behind the link monster. Now that we got that out of the way, the next area of business is the pendulum zones. They are no longer their own areas. Now they are combined with the spells and trap cards, the zones. You still have 5 spells and trap card zones, but now you can place the pendulum monsters on the far corners of each. But when you do that, you'll only have 3 spell and trap card zones to work with at that point, because they occupy 2 of those zones. And I believe that was intentionally done so that way it slowed down the use of multiple spells and traps being either set, activated, or used for later. So that does help. The game itself is slowing down now because of it. Excuse me. Will it remain that way? Time will only tell on that. I see decks, they're going to abuse this somehow. It happens. People are going to find a way to abuse it. But let's get back on topic here. Now, that's not really much more to say on, but pendulum monsters or pendulum zones are now with the magic and traps. So anything like a heavy storm, harpy spare duster, and anything like that, of course, that affected the zones as well. But now they're not excluded, from particular older effects that says the magic and trap zones. So they're part of that now, and accordingly, of course, we'll follow that. And as I said, we're also getting the cybers. The cybers are, from what looks to be, going to be a new type of monster that's currently only going to be link monsters. Of course, there's going to be others like the link spider, which I think is an insect. But cybers might be something newer. I haven't really looked into it, but I do know that they are releasing a starter deck 2017 in Japan in May, I believe. So that's probably when they're going to introduce this new mechanic for them. And then whenever we get that stuff, it'll be just like the pendulum monsters and all. As soon as we see them, that's when it comes into effect. Now, there's no information about the rumor that happened a couple months back about 12,000 life and, yada, yada, yada. Pretty much, this changes everything. Decks will change. The current meta decks will change. Either they'll stay meta, they'll actually get scaled down, or they'll die. In order for synchro-based decks to utilize everything, they'll have to run the link monsters, which occupies the extra deck as well. So they really have to decide what they're going to do and the placements. But there's no current information about life points becoming 1,200, or that the pendulum monsters cannot be summoned the first turn, or whatever. Those are rumors done by someone in Japan, and Slater, whatever his name, over exaggerated on that and everything like that, and that information, and it was just BS. So that's why I don't really watch his videos, because he over explicit things that are rumors and not any actual facts to it. So, well, that's not much more I can really say on it. My honest opinion about these mechanics and everything like that, I like the ideas, the concepts and everything, but I'm going to wait until I give my final judgment on it whenever we start playing it. Right now, it's an interesting concept. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I do like the ideas of the concept and everything like that. I don't know how I feel about the link monsters, because I think that was something added so that way players would not be completely turned off on this. Because I know there's going to be a lot of meta players that are going to be mad about this because it slows the game down. They can't bring out multiple monsters from the extra deck anymore. Not even from pendulum summoning from the extra deck. You can't do that anymore for a massive swarm. It's just one monster for the extra deck zone. Extra deck monster zone, I should say. That's going to be so hard to remember in terms of the name. Probably just the monster or extra deck monster zone, whatever. But it could be a very fun concept. So there's not really much more I can really say on that. I'm trying to find on here if there's anything else, but as I said below, I'll post the links, so there won't be any issues with that. And if anything, I mean, tell me what y'all think. Y'all think this is a good idea, bad idea, terrible idea, Konami's worst thing? I mean, I honestly don't know until the game actually, or to these rulings and everything like that come into play in the TCG, because the YGO pros and everything like that's not going to have that information updated until Japan at least gets everything confirmed of what we're going to have. So, without further ado, I do thank y'all for watching this. I do appreciate y'all's patience for over 14 minutes of information. Whether it was useful or not to you, take it how it is, but I will leave y'all to it, and y'all have a good night.